And we are live on this episode of the Currency Cloud Superhero Spotlight Series. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Nick Kerigan, who is the Head of Innovation Execution at Swift. Nick, it's absolutely brilliant to see you again. Welcome to the session today, and thanks very much for joining us.
Delighted to be with you here and to join the Currency Cloud series. Currency Cloud's a great client for Swift, so yeah, looking forward to our great chat today.
Good to hear. Good to hear. It's a good start, Nick. So look, we've only got about 15 minutes. We're going to go and dive straight into the juicy details of cross-border payments. Recently, Swift has been involved in a huge new strategy, innovation strategy. I think you could kick off by kind of giving us a few more details about that, an overview of the strategy, and really what are the key elements of that relate to cross-border payments?
Yeah, absolutely happy to do that, Piers. And you know, Swift's strategy is born out of the transformation that cross-border payments have been undergoing in recent years, and obviously Currency Cloud has been part of that journey along with Swift. So, you know, we used to have the situation of traditional correspondent banking, and you know that came out of the 1970s, and the desire to solve what was then a really big industry challenge, which is how do you move money between countries. But you know, over the years, people saw cross-border payments as slow and inefficient, and so a few years ago we started on the GPI initiative, and started to deliver real benefits from GPI. And GPI itself is now really gaining scale. So we've got over 1,200 institutions connected to GPI, $350 billion of value sent as GPI every day, and you know, approximately 40% of GPI payments now arrive at end beneficiaries within 5 minutes. So GPI has really moved, you know, the cross-border payment space really along, and it's great to see companies like Currency Cloud and our other clients really adopting that and taking full benefit of GPI. Equally, we know that we can't sit still, right? And there's much more to be done in the space of cross-border payments to really take it to the level of being instant and frictionless. And so that's what Swift's ambitious new strategy is really all about, is actually delivering instant and frictionless payments account to account anywhere in the world. And that sounds like a really big ask, and it is, but it's a really important ask because it responds to the demands that all of our end customers and clients have, which is, you know, people are now expecting international payments to be as easy and convenient as domestic payments are, right? Mm-hmm. So Swift is responding to that, and we're doing that in our new strategy in a few different ways. So one is really enabling the core B2B payments that have always been at the heart of what Swift does, as well as adding on new services that will enable expansion of Swift services into the lower value space to enable small businesses and consumers to also take advantage of these kind of services. Alongside that, we're also really expanding our services around securities, so for greater simplicity and efficiency in securities, and then the new ISO 20022 data standard will enable end-to-end integrity of the payment, and also richer data services to be created off the back of that. Now, to do all this and deliver this ambitious strategy requires a new platform, and that's what at Swift we're working on very hard at the moment, alongside the existing GPI. Our state-of-the-art platform will actually enable end-to-end transaction management. So the payment will be managed end-to-end through this transaction management platform, and that will deliver end-to-end data integrity, backward compatibility, and a rich and open ecosystem. So fintechs will be able to take real advantage of this new platform to provide better services for end customers. And the beauty of this new platform will be that the golden source of data will be preserved in it. So whereas in the sort of current correspondent banking model, messages move in a serial way from bank to bank to bank, in the new world, all of that will happen within the platform, and the banks and other clients will integrate and interact with that platform. And so that in itself really opens up really a whole range of new possibilities for the ecosystem. So we're super excited by this new strategy. It's definitely ambitious, and as important as it is to Swift deliver, it's also important that our community moves with us on that, and that's obviously a lot of the emphasis and work that's happening at the moment. But we do think that this can deliver real transformational benefit to cross-border payments.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for the intro. There's a lot there. I do want to come back to some of the concepts about the instant frictionless payments. Again, they're terms, concepts that we talk a lot about at Currency Cloud to try and enable for all of our clients. But you mentioned that Swift has come, on this journey from, let's say, the 1970s, a multi-decade journey. And who has really been driving this change now then, over the last sort of few months, the last year or so? Who are really the drivers of this change, and who is going to benefit from the innovation that you just mentioned? So
it doesn't happen alone, right? This is a collaborative effort. And so absolutely the drive comes from our leadership in Swift, from Javier, our CEO, and from the executive committee to really look at what is Swift for and what can Swift really deliver. Equally, the drive comes from our clients, because Swift is only as good as the benefit that our clients can take from being part of Swift. So, obviously, clients like yourselves, clients like the whole range of banks and corporates, 11,500 of them that are connected to Swift, and they are themselves demanding better services from us. And then the demand also then comes from all of the clients that those banks and fintechs serve. And I think that's actually, in a way, the strongest driver of change, because those end customers really, really demand more. And if we think about businesses or companies as just a collection of people, essentially, right? It comes back and it becomes personal to all of us. And we think about all of the kind of experiences that we have in our everyday lives. We expect them just to happen, and we expect payments just to happen. And so the change that we've seen, I think, in the B2C world around expectations of how services get delivered and how digital they are, then they're now really coming into the B2B world and the B2B2C world, which is the world in which we all exist in, right? And so I think they're probably the strongest drivers of change. And actually, people saying, well, if I can experience this kind of service this good in my personal or individual life, why can't business payments be just as good?
Totally. It's that sort of trickle up effect, isn't it? Where, everybody has now got something digitalized on their app, on their smartphone. Right. And it's that expectation that everything in their wider lives, whether it's within a business, an SME or not, should be functioning within the same ways. Let's also just come back to the sort of the frictionless side of it as well, right? I've talked previously about it's the friction emerges from between the payer and the beneficiary. That is where the real tension exists, and it starts to multiply through all of the different chains within the entity. Again, just in terms of the Swift innovation strategy, what are you sort of thinking about in terms of helping to remove that friction throughout the different layers within the payments or transaction chains? Yeah,
it's a great point, because I think one of the things that we've learned through doing GPI is what GPI has been able to solve for and what GPI also has not yet been able to solve for, hence the new strategy. So, but by implementing GPI, we've actually got this whole set of messaging infrastructure to really speed up and deliver consistency and get that payment much faster from one end to the other. But we also discovered along the way that there are some frictions there that stop frictionless happening, but are very little to do with actually the messaging itself. So we found things like fraud checks, compliance checks, KYC and sanctions checks. Those are things that all slow the payment down, alongside very much operational things that maybe had not been so considered in the correspondent banking space. For example, operating hours, right? And the requirements of real time, meaning you move to a 24/7 by 365 type model, which we were already familiar with maybe in the card space, but it was only with the move to real-time domestic payment system did we start to get familiar with in the more bank-to-bank payments space. So in terms of the innovation agenda we have at Swift, our innovation is very much purpose-led. So that means we're about accelerating and de-risking product development and creating great products for our clients. And that gives us a real focus. The other thing is it's very collaborative. We know that most of these things can't be solved alone, and so we seek to involve clients in that innovation process and look for challenges that everybody understands that they can't solve for. So, for example, some of those frictionless challenges that I mentioned. Few things that are kind of big on our agenda at the moment in terms of innovation. I mean, one is the journey to cloud. All of the sort of existing financial institutions that have not been built on cloud have now huge programs to transition to the cloud. And so we've been actively working, for example, creating tools that help banks move their existing rule set from our existing Alliance Access product to our new Alliance Cloud product. So those payment rules can be straightforwardly migrated. We're also seeing much greater demand for APIs, and so really expanding out our API number of APIs. We already have about 2 billion calls a year on our API portal, so we're operating at scale on that, but we're really enhancing our developer portal and our developer experience at the moment, understanding that there's a huge amount more for those in terms of demand and channels for those to be delivered in an API type format. And then the last thing we're really focusing on, which is really exciting, is around AI and machine learning. And creating a center of excellence for AI and machine learning. We recently announced that we're developing a new set of machine learning services using the C3.ai platform and partnering with Red Hat Linux. So we're really onto this now, and we think that that machine learning has huge potential to solve some of those kind of tricky problems around frictionless that require being able to look across a very large data set and find anomalies in that then can be identified and dealt with by the users of Swift.
And Nick, you mentioned the word banks in there as one of the intended customers, and yes, many people may associate Swift partly through that sort of multi-decade sort of setup and existence with traditional banks. But this is not just about banks, right? There is a fintech audience in this, or incorporated at the heart of this strategy as well. Absolutely right, Piers. I mean, obviously, Swift's heritage was as an organization created by banks, because those were the predominant financial institutions at the time and have been until recently. Equally, Swift is an open membership-based organization, and so we welcome many types of organization to become members of Swift, and that applies to fintechs that want to become members as well, and very much welcome them. And fintechs are an important part of this, the thinking behind this new platform and strategy that we've been talking about today, because we're conscious that we want to enable fintechs to build new services on top of this new platform, and therefore be able to actually kind of innovate with us. And we think the data that will be contained in this new platform will be, a spur to that kind of innovation. So yeah, very much looking. We already do a lot with fintechs, as you know, but we're really looking to do more as we go forward as well. And I think especially important in that the sort of open ecosystem concept that you mentioned earlier. If we think back a few years, in the not too distant past, actually, banks would perhaps refer to fintechs as in some cases the enemy, and that fundamentally has changed. Actually, I think probably the emergence of big tech and some of the the other emerging threats globally has really sort of allowed banks, or perhaps even forced some banks to reposition and think about fintechs as a collaborative friend in many cases to help get propositions to market. And I like that idea about the sort of the collaboration within that open ecosystem. I assume that's sort of key to this strategy being driven forward.
Absolutely, and you know, there's a recognition. I think we all see it in the industry between banks and fintechs alike that each type of player can bring potential advantages, and so you know we're now in the era of partnership. In Swift we're very much building out our partners program as well, and you see many partnerships happening between banks and fintechs now as you know, as each kind of set of parties really understands those mutual benefits and starts actually, it's taken a while, but actually really starts to work out the ways of working between them as well. The other thing that's I think goes alongside that is the kind of huge kind of unbundling of this tech stack that goes with that, because if you were in one of these previous monolithic tech stacks, there's not much you can do, right? To be able to sort of slice and dice. Whereas now with that starting to open up, you know, banks and other players are recognizing that different parts of the stack could be played by different players, and in some cases, you know, they want to own that. In some cases, you know, they will look to seek and find partners who can do that, you know, best in class. So I think we're seeing a much more of an emergence of a sort of, you know, a much more kind of diverse ecosystem here with you know, multitude of players in it, and I think the industry's richer for it.
And perhaps all driven by the API piping, right? That connects all of these different services together.
Absolutely.
Allows people to come and innovate far more quickly than they've ever been able to do before. And to stop reinventing wheels, to go to best in class partners. You know, Currency Cloud, I would argue, has been at the forefront of this, providing cross-border transactions via API for some time now. But really to go to the best-in-class partners to onboard those services as quickly as possible and get to market in record time, hopefully. And you know, we've still got a little bit of way to go on that, right? A number of organizations, you know, like Currency Cloud, have been at the forefront of this API transformation. Equally, there's still quite a lot of work, I think, to do the industry in terms of standardization of APIs, so that it means that integrations can happen a lot quicker and more efficiently. And so that's, I think, is still, you know, key enabler out there and a key area for innovation in terms of, you know, standardizing API sets and kind of unlocking the opportunity that offers. Great. So we've got 1 or 2 minutes left. We talked at the start about this journey, sort of coming from the yesteryear through to what's happening today. And then just to finish off, let's talk about the future for a few minutes. We mentioned the innovation strategy and the importance of collaboration going forward. But how do you see the future of cross-border payments and transactions changing and looking like over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think it's going to be very different in the next 5 to 10 years. I mean, the world will be very different. Cross-border payments will also be very different. You know, we will have delivered on this vision of instant and frictionless, and people will stop thinking about cross-border payments as almost like something different. They will think of it as any other payment. And those payments will then also be part of this huge trend to be embedded in other services as well. So I think we'll find cross-border payments, you know, easy, convenient, cheap, and you know, like domestic payments are becoming, they won't become something consciously you have to do. They will just happen when you want to make one of those payments. So there's a lot to solve for, but there's also a really exciting time ahead.
Totally agree. So exciting time to be in the industry. Well, Nick, thank you very much. We're going to have to call an end to it there. I'm sure we could talk for much longer about this. Just lastly, for anyone who wants to find out more, what do they need to do?
So we're always looking for partners and like-minded people to collaborate with. Please go to our innovation pages on swift.com. You can find out there about all our innovation activities, our recent paper and Inside Innovation event that we ran, or you can reach out to our public email address, innovate@swift.com. So innovate@swift.com. that email comes in direct to me, and then we can then connect you with the right person in the innovation team or the wider Swift organization. And looking forward to hearing from anybody who wants to join us on this journey.
Fantastic. Well, Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a good rest of your day to everybody who's joined us.
Awesome. Thank you, Piers. Great to join.
Thanks.